And so we've been doing this since 2017, but more public facing since 2019, 2020. And when you look back, it's like it's 2025, Ant. Like, what have you done the last 5 years? And it's very easy to say, well, we did a couple of projects. Some worked, some were entertaining, some didn't work. Some are a little upset with the house. Some of them worked, right? Like, there is no particular project where it's like, that's what they did, and this is what makes them so great. It's always been almost like a constant stream of testing, right? So like we would do a project and recognize, well, we want to do this project because the value of this project is A, B, and C. And then in doing that project, we realized, well, it could be even more valuable if we did this, and we did this, or we should adjust it to this, or now we should evolve it to this. And as that list, let me just see something. There we go. And as that assembly line, if you will, continued, there's a nuance between change and evolve. And that nuance is only fact or fiction at the completion of the journey. So it allows everyone to their own mind to make up where we are. And what I mean by that is, for instance, if somebody has just been with Rhino for X amount of years and suddenly says today, this has been a complete failure, complete waste of time, well then to that individual, everything's constantly changed. You started with this ant and you change it and you change it and you change it and you change it and you never found anything and it looks like you're still trying to find something. I don't want to be on the ride any longer. That's factually accurate to the perception of the person sharing that frustration. Then you have the other person that says, no, I think he's on to something. I think they're on to something because I remember we started with this and it evolved to this and it evolved to this and it evolved to this. And I believe that it's going to evolve into something that's going to be the grand, what's the word I'm looking for? The finish line per se. And still, even that person is kind of whistling Dixie because the outcome that they're presuming is only that, a presumption, because they're still inferring. Now, fast forward some time, and two outcomes happen. Either A, Rhino failed, in which case the person, the former person that says, it just kept changing, is in retrospect correct, right? So that person would then stand up and say, see, I knew it in real time, and that only bore out the proof. But is it, or did that person just get lucky, right? Because it can only pass or fail, meaning their, public frustration is only right or wrong. There's only two outcomes, so it's kind of like flipping a coin. And then the other individual, the latter, that says, no, it's evolving, should we actually end up achieving our goal and crossing the finish line, would subsequently say the same exact thing. See, I knew it. It was evolving, and here's the proof to offer the pretext for exactly what I was talking about, right? The point being, it is not factually inaccurate to say that Rhino pass-fail, right, whether we succeed or don't succeed, is completely and 100% dependent on the evolution and the ultimate outcome, whether we're correct or not, that we'll get there. So then the question then becomes, well, what's the outcome you're looking to get to? And that, I think, has always provided the most difficulty for everyone, because it's like, well, Ant, you kind of change, or you evolve. That's even you in real time have no clue where you're going. And I don't think that's unfair. I think if you would have asked me 5 years ago what I thought we would be, I think it's 100% accurate to say it would be completely different than where we are. Unless you decompartmentalized the reason why I believed we were going to get wherever we were going to get. And that reason, after you peeled back all the onion, was always, and still always, and has always been, because I believe that if we act ethically and morally and put everyone first, the group first, that we will get to where we need to go. That's never changed. In fact, the DNA of Rhino has always been the same. It's just a matter of what kind of clothing we wore that day. But the heart, the soul, the blood, all of that's never changed. So one could say, well, you know what? I see the aesthetics change, but knowing that the core has never changed, it's almost been like adjusting to the market, A/B testing as you've continued to do a rollout. And I think that's probably the most generous, but also the most fair of where we've been. So that's kind of a little bit of a background. Now, where we are currently, I think, like I said, is a really, really good place. And I think the reason I offered that whole preamble, which seems like, Ant, did you really have to spend that much time? I did, because the letter that I sent out yesterday, which is still just in draft mode, there are some things that I do want to add to it. You know, as I was thinking this morning during my morning jog, I was like, oh, I should add this, I should take this out, I should see how, right? So there is still some adjustment. But I allowed Ted to read it to me during my morning jog. And as I was listening to it, I'm like, this is really good. It's very clear, concise, simple, boom. This is what we can offer you. And it does provoke, well, these are some outrageous claims. This is really, really big, but it makes sense because they identified the core. For AI to move anywhere, it is data dependent, and the holy grail of data is this. And the only way you could get this data is by doing this. And if they were able to identify that, well, it does behoove me to say, let me see if they can confirm this confirmation, right? If they said, this is the Holy Grail, which I believe is the Holy Grail, I'm agreeing with them it's the Holy Grail, well, let's confirm how they were able to patent it, because if they were able to patent that outcome, well, now we're somewhere, because now I'm agreeing that this is what it is, and if they have the path to get there, and it's an exclusive path, well, oh my God, right? Like, this is manna, this is like a gift from God. And I think at the very least, that's what that letter does. I also think that letter shares our intentions, right? I'm not looking to become a trillionaire. Nobody's looking to any of that. We believe that this should be in other hands. So I think the letter was quite good. Now, to craft that letter, I think it's like 914 words. I think one could easily look at that letter and be like, oh, it's a good letter. But I think that misses the point of how many hours have gone into getting to the point to even craft that letter, right? Like, first you need to have gone through those 7 years of evolve, change. You also have to incorporate an entire audience and allow everyone to share whatever thoughts they have, but you also have to allow them to feel comfortable enough that they can share those thoughts. And you also have to allow them to feel comfortable enough that you're going to actually consider it and apply it, which means at some point you would have had to have been wrong and shown that you were willing to make the adjustments. You would have had to have allowed people to be invested emotionally, financially, logically, spiritually, emotionally. You would have had to have continued to have been accessible to show that you are constantly there. You would have had to have, been faced with some challenges, daunting, like a pandemic or a personal court legal stuff. And also show that through it all, you've never wavered. In fact, you've allowed everything to morph and evolve into gasoline for this engine that you're continuing to drive. You have to also still be, genuine to who you were when you started. And I think we check all those boxes. And again, I'm not offering conclusions. I'm not saying, well, this is why you should love us or hate us. I'm offering the facts as I see it, and everyone's, free to make their own decision. But I think only when you can do all of that, could you have successfully gone from step A to B to C, taken in all of the advice and suggestion and recommendation and criticism to then come up with a letter that does hit, or at least check all the boxes as it did. Now, to come up with that letter, you also have to have the support. You have to have the support and documentation to support said letter. So the letter is, hey, this is what we got, bing, bing, bing. Then the supporting doc is, okay, table of contents, patent, right? Like universal employment. And then each one of those would then go to its subsection, like a chapter, and each chapter would have to be as concise as that letter. In which case you would do all of that, and then the last thing would be, the white pages, the really obnoxiously long, minute description by detail, that's there. Well, Ant, that's kind of annoying, and who would read it? Well, A, if you got to that point, it's your responsibility to read it, right? But B, in the age of AI that we're in, that white paper has been optimized to be able to be uploaded into anyone's AI. So it is true to then say, hey, Governor Murphy, no one expects you to read this entire thing. Go ahead and upload it into your ChatGPT or whatever you have, and then pose it your own questions based on your own AI, which obviously has zero bias to us because you're uploading it from your behalf. In fact, it's biased to you, and see what answers you get. Have a team do the same, see what answers you get. You can draw your own conclusions by all of the content, all of the data we're giving to you, in which case you can draw your own emotional, logical, common sense conclusion on the concise format of the beginning, and then draw your legal and professional and detail-oriented conclusion of all of the beep, 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 beeps at the end. And on top of it, here's a video of kind of a case study. This is how we see it's going, and that's the video that's on Beyond Freehold right now. So I believe we are a day or two away from having everything, because what I just described to you still needs to be compiled. It needs to be put together. The letter needs a little bit of, like I said, a little bit of an additional draft, which will be done by, I would say, 3 o'clock today. And then identifying all of the assets that do need to make up the table of contents and adjusting them to fit in the style of the letter. Could be done by 5 or 6. In which case my day pretty much ends at 7, because that's when I call my children. And at that point, it's like, okay, Aunt, maybe eat something and go to sleep, because you wake up and start again to maybe 3 o'clock the next day. So my morning really is quite long before we ever get to each other right now. Hey, Travis. Hey, Brian. In which case tomorrow then would complete that stuff, in which case tomorrow's Tuesday, and it would have been completed by Wednesday. Then on Wednesday, we go ahead and begin making that outreach. And we do it quite white glove, quite simple touch. You know, we send a package, send an email, make a phone call, let individuals know that this is coming, okay? And then we do it again, and then again, and again. And then Monday, I would like to be at the governor's office, in which case I'm then just going to show up with a package, and I'm going to work on my computer using their Wi-Fi my entire days until the man meets me. And that's fine, right? And that might sound aggressive, and it might sound like almost threatening, right? But it's not. It's like, if you have the cure for cancer and someone has cancer, do you do everything it takes to give them the cure, even if it annoys them? Do you knock on their door and bop, 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 knowing that they're going to say, you know, you're been annoying, and then you say, well, I get it. Here's the cure for cancer. You're welcome. And they're like, oh, thank you for being so annoying, right? If you're drunk and you're going to get in the car and your friend does everything he needs to do to take your keys away, do you curse him out the whole night because you're drunk? Yeah. The next morning, what do you say? Thank you. So I don't live in, like, everything that's ever happened in your life has already happened. It's in your past. Everything that's going to happen to your life hasn't happened yet. It's in the future. Your life is quite literally the fleeting second that goes by, tick, tick, tick. So if anybody believes that I'm going to put so much onus on a fleeting second at the moment that somebody might be a little, wow, this guy's annoying, you have another thing coming. And anyone that's listening to me in terms of trying to fight me in court because they are making arguments, which, by the way, do you know the definition of harassment is the intent to annoy, which is complete mind reading, right? And I say that in court all the time. And I say, you know what? I know this is going to sound offensive, but it's mind reading, because you're saying that you know my intent. And everyone just proclaims, well, he's harassing because the things he's doing is annoying, and he knows that he's annoying me, and that's his intent to annoy. And again, I'm not ascribing that to any individual saying it. I'm speaking contextually in terms of what our legal system is. So anybody that is making that argument against me that then goes ahead and says, look in the video, he says he's not afraid to annoy anyone. There's a difference between personal and business. And both of them are for my children, which means if I knowingly am going to do something that's going to lose my children, I won't do it. Which means in the personal spectrum of things, considering I know the definition, I would never then parallel, well, I don't mind annoying the person, because that has a different outcome, right? So let's take that and put it off. So for those that might be watching this saying, oh, look, we don't need to mind read him. He said it out loud. There you go. I'm mind reading you because I know that you're an unethical actor, let's say. And that is not directed at one person, actually. That's directed at like 50 people. But in the terms of business, I do not care one bit to annoy anyone. I don't. Because if you're annoying someone, you have to... See, here's the thing, right? Annoying people are annoying and motivated people are annoying. How do you decipher between the two? Well, annoying people are annoying because they don't actually produce or have any kind of outcome that has any type of rationale or logic or even a path to it. Really intelligent people are annoying because they have a path that they want to get to and they don't allow any 1, 2, or 3 people to get in their way in an ethical way, right? So like if I know you have cancer and I have the cure for cancer, I don't care to annoy you, I will get you the cure. End of story, right? And that's not a crazy analogy because I do believe we're at the point in history, especially with AI. And one might say, well, Ant, it just began. You can't say we're at that point. Yes, you can, because AI is just a fancy calculator that collects data. Once the data is collected, what do you think it's going to do? It's just going to it has what it needs, right? So with AI, the beginning days are the most important because once it captures all of that data and then is able to start making its own autonomous decisions, you have to then calculate who owns the AI, who's making the decisions, who's prospering from it, because then an ecosystem and an economy builds off that. So once those things are in place, well, now there's the second layer and the third layer and the fourth layer that all enforce that first layer. So with AI, the beginning days are the days that actually are important, just like cancer. You have to catch it early. In fact, that's actually a perfect analogy. So I do believe that we have the cure for AI cancer, and I have no problem in knowing as many people as possible to do it. Okay, so starting as of Monday, I plan to spend my entire work days at the governor's mansion. Does he have a mansion? I have no idea. But whatever his office is, that's where I'm going. And I don't think they can kick me out. It's like the people's office. It's not a private office. The governor is the governor of the state. I think they can tell me, well, his calendar's really booked for today. And I'll say, not a problem. Maybe I'll catch him on the way out. I brought donuts. Maybe he wants a donut, right? Because all I need is a couple of minutes. No one actually believes that. I need like 10, 15, maybe 30. But I will do it respectfully, and I will make sure that I'll schedule every single day. Does he have any available? Blah, 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 blah. And at some point, because I know this to be true, successful people reward perseverance. They reward persistence. If somebody shows up every single day and is willing to sleep on the floor, at some point they say, I don't even know what this person has, but bring him in because I need to meet this person. I just have to. I've never seen anyone this committed. And if he has something, then it would make sense. If he's crazy, I'm going to find out very quickly, but he's one of the two. He's absolutely nuts or he has something. And either way, I need to speak to this person. Yeah, State House. I grew up always here in the governor's mansion, so I've never been there, right? Like I have no idea where he lives. And by lives, I don't mean his personal home, right? I guess I would actually. Maybe he does live in a mansion and you go to the State House. Either way, I'm going to the professional location, not the personal location. Anyway, so I'm going to do this until the middle of March. And I'm going to make it very clear that I'm doing this in the middle of March. Because at the middle of March, again, everything that we have is now able to be cloned. We can take exactly the presentation, exactly the letter, exactly everything, and clone it 50 times and just make the alteration Governor Smith, right? Not Governor Murphy. Now, let me make this very clear. Governor Murphy and New Jersey are our priority, which is why we're giving them a 1-month head start. But we're not going to all die of cancer because they decided that they just felt like had better things to do. So we're giving them that month because again, home is our priority. But should home not prioritize us, we will make the same offer to every other governor in this entire country simultaneously. Because at that point, all I need to do is send it out. And I will send out packages, I will make phone calls. My entire day will be calling those people every single second. I will look at the time and say, okay, we have 49 other governors in this country. There's 60 minutes in an hour, which means I can call every single one time an hour. And that would be equivalent to this guy just sits in my office all day. He sits in the waiting room. What are we going to do with this guy? Okay. Simultaneous to that, that's when we send out all of the correspondence to the private equity and private money, which we have through PitchBook, which we haven't even done anything yet, but we spent 6 months interviewing with them and paid like a really hefty upfront fee to even have access to it, which is 6 months long, and we're already a month and a half in and have done nothing to it. But that also has all of the data of all the individuals that work at all the different private equities that have all the data on the deals that they're working on, how much money they have left, what are they interested in, blah. So we'll have the clone for the states, and then we'll have a clone for the businesses, in which case that clone is going to be a letter that says, instead of Governor blah, 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 it's going to say, hey, Sequoia Capital, we know that you have X amount of money and this type of thing. This is your account manager, or actually it's going to be directly to that account manager. So, dear Mike Jones of Sequoia Capital, we understand your pipeline is this. This is what you're looking at. We believe we can solve it with this. Take a look, bing. In which case, that means we're going to be sending out, 50 private institutionals per day. Because if you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're able to clone something, it's really just emailing at that point. Let's say 50 private institutions per day, and I guess 50 governors a day, because if we're going to do it every day. Okay. So the question, the question then becomes, by the end of March, having done this process, would you have spoken to someone that has interest? And again, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation, spending the 7 years, going through the changes or the evolving and bringing everyone in, blah, blah, blah. I know whether we win or lose, pass or fail, succeed or completely collapse, that's everything we've ever done has been, despite every challenge, has been with unabating endurance, has been with allowing everyone and sourcing everyone and welcoming everyone and inviting everyone and soliciting everyone's opinion, thoughts, advice, criticism. It's been public facing, it's been accountable, it's been accessible, and it's been with the absolute thread that has connected the DNA of this whole entire thing, which is ethics and morality, and on the behalf of the people, not the person. Which means I know that to be true, and I think any honest person would say that to be true, or at least that they believe that to be true. And I think I'm quite intelligent, and if you put that all together, I do not think that recipe, those ingredients, equals failure. I believe it equals some form of success. And I think that form of success, when in front of this many decision makers, all with a personal interest in being the one that should gold come to their door, would happily say, I was the one that led AI because I was smart enough to recognize the offer that was in front of me. Okay, so if we believe that to be true, then we simultaneously or subsequently or in parallel believe that by April we would have identified at least one individual that is interested with the means to close. Okay. Now the email I sent out yesterday had our deal, and it's quite simple. So I want to kind of touch on that, because I do believe it's quite easy for anybody to say, well, Ant, you say you have the cure for cancer, but yet 10 million, that's like obnoxiously low. Like if I knew that and I went through all of this, I wouldn't even, that's not a big enough reward for me. In which case I agree with you, right? Like I don't think that's a big enough reward. But if you read a little bit closer, and this isn't meant derogatory, like I'm just being a little bit hyperbolic out loud. If you read a little bit closer at the fine print, you would see that there is that 10 million for 90% with the component of the remaining 10% to be an indefinite revenue share or profit share. I think it says profit share, which means all of the royalties and all of the anything ever collected by the state of New Jersey or any state for having this patent and licensing it, 10% of that every single month would be distributed to all the investors for life. And I don't mean life, I mean generationally. I mean your kids, your kids, your kids, your kids. Okay, so if we are correct, and if this is something that is able to be licensed to businesses and corporations, in which case this patent actually is the gatekeeper for AI to a certain point, and anyone that goes past it, then that becomes quite valuable. Anybody that wants to participate in the AI commerce marketplace has to pay a subscription fee to that, in which case, billions, trillions? You know, I say trillions. Now, I don't think that's overnight, but I think that happens. Like, I think if you move from email marketing or door-to-door marketing to phone marketing to email marketing to search engine marketing to social media marketing to digital marketing to AI marketing, I believe that number gets quite large. And it's easy to say, well, Ant, still 10 million? Well, that's duly component, right? Duly componentized? I don't even think that's a word. It's like Frozen 2, people, triple. I don't even think that's a word. I love it. Anyway, it's duly, it has two components that it presupposes. One is, I think it has two. I did have two in mind. Now I only have one. But let's see if I get up to two. Two is, one, the state has their own legal department. It's called the Attorney General. That legal department has the ability to defend any patent. Far better than me. That legal department has the ability to cause other companies, other businesses, the independent initial thought of, I'm not going to go against the Attorney General of New Jersey. I'll just go through them. Hey guys, we want to participate in this. You know, what's the deal? Because if it was just me, Google would say, that guy that lives in an apartment with green lights around his house and is in like divorce battles and stuff, thinks that we're not going to impose on his patent because what? We have a legal team that will put him in court for years, and our team and then their team. This guy has no ability to ever defend that patent against corporations. And I think they'd be right. I think that's really smart. I think they could all willfully just abuse my patent because I will never be able to defend it. Therefore, the state of New Jersey actually adds, or any state for that matter, or any private equity, right? Anyone that has a very, very strong legal department adds at least 50, 60, 70% of the value, because if you can't defend something, then it doesn't matter what you have. It's just going to be taken. In fact, if you have something so valuable but can't defend it, everyone goes, oh, there's the JERK that has it but can't defend it. Now we know where it is. Let's go take it from him, right? Let's go bury him in legal, court and all the rest of it. And then at the end of the day say, hey, listen, why don't you just give it to us for like $1 million? We'll give you $1 million and then just, go off somewhere, right? Okay. So that is a real value and we recognize that. Oh, I know the other one. That's a real value. And that works. So that works twofold as well, because A, it increases the value, actually threefold, increases the value. B, it puts the state in the prime position to be the arbiter of how much value it actually ends up becoming, because they have in their own ability to defend the patent. And if they can defend the patent, it's worth subsequently and correlate in correlation more as the patent defense as possible. Therefore, the state of New Jersey or any state single-handedly can turn an asset into gold if it has the presupposition of the text and the legal framework underneath it. Okay, so that's good. Secondly, it allows a scalable market, because everyone then gets on board if the state of New Jersey is behind it. Hey guys, we own it. We're the state of New Jersey. I'm Governor Murphy. This is what we have. You can feel trusted by coming to us. And if you don't want to come to us, we're going to come to you if you infringe on our patent. Here's our dashboard. Here's our, whatever. Come to it and, sign up. Which means the money coming in, the subscriptions coming in, exponentiate, which means this patent in these people's hands equals not only the highest value for the patent, but also the most recurring coming in. And then there was that other component that I then subsequently forgot again. Let me see if I could come up with it. I forgot it. So the states has the patent. Oh, okay, I remember. And the last one being the 10 million mark. Well, Ant, even given everything that you said, still, it's like a really low number. I know that. The point being, I want them to close immediately. I don't want to continue this knowing that there's money and that it should be in other people's hands, right? We've all invested for quite some time. People need to be able to cash out. And what this deal allows is a patent that is worth as much as the buyer of it wants it to be based on their own legal department. As such, a patent and a business that the buyer, being the state, not only can make as worth as much as they want, but also has the mechanism to ensure the scalability of companies and businesses subscribing, which equals the highest amount of recurring revenue, which subsequently equals the highest amount of recurring revenue of that 10% that equals the profit share. And that is all outside the scope of the immediate cost or any cost of the entity purchasing, in this example being New Jersey, because these are all inherent qualities of value that they bring just by singly signing on the dotted line and activating their already in-house departments, whether it be their attorney general to defend, or be their community outreach or small business or New Jersey economic development authorities. These all are entities that already have this ability to say, okay, great, we have that. Now we can all go ahead and do our jobs. Great. Which means I do believe that the state, especially when it has a $6 billion surplus, says, okay, yeah, 10 million, we can close that in a week. Seriously, we can close that in a week. Great. In which case, the last component of it is that I personally retain 33% voting on all major decisions. Meaning the administration can make whatever decisions they want, but if I deem it to be a major decision, they have to put it up to a public vote. In which case, and I guess we would have to negotiate that. I mean, ideally, I would just like put it up to a vote, incorporate everyone in New Jersey. Hey guys, we're voting on this new AI initiative. This is the vote. This is why we believe it should pass. But Anthony doesn't believe it should pass. Therefore, we have to. It triggers us putting it out there for a vote. This is his reasons. This is our reasons. What do you think? And of that entire popular vote, I'm 33% of it. So say 100 people, say I vote no, and 67 people vote. So 67 people vote plus me, and I count as 33, that equals 100. Now I'm using 100 because it's a round number, which means 33% immediately say no, which means the state would need 51 of those 67 to say yes, which is a very large percentage. So now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I only get 20% vote. But the point being that I'm never going to allow the DNA of what this is to be lost in the hands of someone else. There is not an amount of money that you can give me. So, and 10 million, great, everyone's happy. And 10% of the recurring, everyone is rich for life. That's still not enough. I'm always going to be a part of making those decisions, but not like omnipotently, not like, hey, you guys buy this, but you can't do it. No, take it, have fun with it. This is the mission of why we did it. And I believe that I need to be retained in some capacity to continue being a part of those decisions, but I don't think I should have majority. I don't think I should have any of that, but I should have an outsized opinion. So I don't count as one vote. If there's a decision that I disagree with you on, you have to put it up to a public vote, and I retain X percentage of vote. And I don't think there's anyone that would disagree with me. I think those that have been part of Rhino for X amount of years would actually say, you know what, money's cool, but we're not selling out the universe, right? Like I want him to be a part of that decision-making because I do believe that he has at least shown the resume through experience and all the stuff that we've listed, that this is a sound voice that does not care about money in a room of others that might only care about money. So that would be the deal to the state. And what I do believe in terms of that 10%, that would be the most profitable part of it. In which case, to receive a monthly check from the state of New Jersey for your equity percentage of the 10% in revenue that's coming in, say for instance, $1 billion's coming in every month in these, subscription fees. let's say it's only a billion. I think it gets to a trillion, but whatever. Say it's only a billion. Well, 10% of a billion is 100 million. And now we're just identifying who owns what percentage, right? So you own 5%, you own 6%. It would be nice to get a $6 million check every single month. It'd be nice to get a 7 million. Oh, I only own 0.5%. It'd be nice to get a $500,000 check, right? Like these are big numbers. And maybe the state goes, 10% is a lot because it'll take 34%. Okay, yeah, thanks, Travis. 10% is a lot, we'll move you down to 5%. In which case, I think I would probably settle at 7.5. I guess you could twist my arm down to 5, but because that's still a lot of money. And this is something that everyone that's ever been a part of Rhino, whether you ever invested or you've just been a part of it, like we always said in the Rhino Bucks days, we're giving everyone 10,000 Rhino Bucks for free, and and Rhino Bucks is zero. Fine. I never said it's like that's always got converted to equity. I don't know the percentages it'll be, but somebody that's never had the opportunity or ability to go ahead and invest in it, but has always been a part of it, is not someone that I'm ever going to punish by saying, hey, you didn't have money. No, you've been a part of everything. So everyone will be rewarded. And for me personally, like I have X percentage. It's obviously the largest percentage. But I don't see a world where I would say, oh, well, the people that had the 10,000 free Rhino Bucks, I'm only going to give them this. I would say, well, if I could just take a little bit out of mine, I can give them something quite sizable. I would do that, right? So at the end of the day, everyone's going to be rewarded. So the idea, and I guess I should go over to the private side, so the private equity side and that money side, we would never get that 10% recurring because they're in for profit, right? Which means the private equity side would buy it and look to maybe hold it, but probably not. They would look to get the value up and sell it somewhere. And the ability for them to sell an asset that is tied to someone else that makes major decisions probably isn't going to be very likely. They're not going to say, hey, we're going to allow you to anchor yourself to this thing and be the arbiter of whether we could ever sell it. In which case, they would have to do a market value. So if they wanted 90%, which I don't think anyone would ever do, that's like entirely too much money. But let's say we put the market value at 100 million, which I still think is on the light side because I think 250 million is 100 to 250 is the most conservative estimate that we've gotten. So let's say 100 million. You want to buy 51%, you want controlling stake, whatever the case may be. That comes out to like $51 million, right? And then, all the divvies and everything happen from there. So I don't think anyone would be upset about that either. But to me personally, I like deal one. I want the recurring. I want everyone and their generations and the next generations and the next generations. I want 7 generations from now, them to say, yeah, Uncle Travis has shared stories how obnoxious Anthony was and how he would come out here and talk and got nothing done for 7 years. And then out of nowhere, everything that he said he was doing, which couldn't have been seen because it was all like, intellectual and tangential, finally happened. And the level of trust and morality of an individual, knowing that that no one has any ability to really see how things are happening because it's all quantumly like in the space of just the air, where it's like, okay, this is going to lead to this, but it's going to lead to it there. And at that point, we're going to have this. And I don't know how this is going to happen, but we're going to fit it in somewhere. That when it worked, he made good on it and made sure that everyone was always a part of it from day one. That quite conceivably, he probably could have said it's bankrupt, everyone's out, make another company, and all of a sudden come up with it, which sounds gross to me. And actually, as I say it out loud, I think that that's possible. I think I could actually do that. And I think that's the most disgusting thing anyone could ever do. And I would rather die. I'd rather everyone come to my house and stone me to death than that to ever happen. So let me make that quite clear. But in the realm of like how people can think of, paths, and for someone to say or to prove that they did the thing even when they didn't have to do the thing, I hope 7 generations from now, later, Albert, thank you. Travis's family's like, well, I guess they wouldn't have that voice. Travis would if he was still alive. But that they did the right thing. And to kind of sum this all up and close it, where we are right now, like I shared, is 2 days away from sending that initial outreach. And the timeline of this, I guess the forecastable timeline for this, now he's trying to ill me off, would be that by April, we would have had someone say yes. So by Wednesday to April, my job is exactly as defined in this video. I'm not going to go back over it because I think I could spend 8 minutes trying to summarize everything that I just said. And then April, I have personal court stuff. And that doesn't mean if this doesn't happen, I'm just going to push it off. But I have another trial, April 22nd to 24th, but this is matrimonial. This isn't criminal. This is everything that I've, endured for the last 2 years. Finally got to the point of I never accepted anything. Nothing's ever been found of me. And now it's like, okay, we have to go to trial because apparently this guy says he never did anything. No one's ever found anything of him. He says that this person is an unethical actor. She's saying he's an unethical actor. And now it's that time. We have to go to trial. We have to get the facts. We're going to get the questions. We're going to get the evidence. We're going to get the witnesses. In which case, I'm really quite pleased with that. I've been asking for trial for quite some time because, I guess I can't say the next sentence, but I'm very confident about that. Actually, speaking about the last trial that I just got out of, which was criminal trial, I'm not going to get too much into it because, you don't count your chickens before they hatch, but I can't imagine it could have gone any worse for the prosecutor. I don't even know how it's possible. In which case, what you find out about life is that if you're willing to work as hard as possible, you're always going to win if you're honest. Because the other individual that you're going against, A, likely is never going to work as hard as you, and B, the reason they'll never work as hard as you is because, A, you might be able to outwork them, which is, again, the presupposition if you dedicate yourself to outworking someone, so that's a given. But B, is also the presupposition that if you're honest, because if you're honest, then the other person is dishonest, which means a dishonest person has to work as hard as the honest person who's willing to outwork anybody because he has the truth, which doesn't exist. There is no one that would ever spend as much time working to defend a lie than a person that's willing to defend the truth. And what I found out about in trial against a prosecutor is there was a particular video, right? And I'm not gonna get too much into it, but there's a particular video that in no world should have ever been shown by the prosecutor because it unambiguously proves that I'm innocent, right? So as a prosecutor, and again, let's take ourselves back and pretend that they have no obligation to the truth. They only have an obligation to winning, which is completely disgusting in its own right, but let's pretend that to be true. Strategically, in no world should you have ever allowed that video to be shown. Ever. So the prosecution came up with a couple of we shouldn't show this video because of A, B, and C. And then the judge is like, Mr. Calhoun, what do you have to say to that? And then I would say something. And then the prosecutor would say, well, even still, blah, 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 blah. Well, Mr. Calhoun, what do you say to that? And I said something that ruffled the prosecutor's feathers. And the prosecutor then said, well, Your Honor, we've watched the video. Mr. Calhoun says something and then backtracks. There's nothing even there anyway. And the point being, I knew, I don't want to get too much and sound like, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I have behavior science background. I know behavior. They're lawyers. They know the law. Which means we went to trial with different approaches. I knew during the entire course of the trial what I was doing, that I knew that I can eventually get this prosecutor to a point that the pressure of losing to a pro se, a guy that has no degree, is going to be so frustrating when they go back to the office that eventually they would crack. And this was the moment the prosecutor cracked, because I then said, Your Honor, the prosecution just testified to the contents of the video. Now it has to be admitted, otherwise I'm going to be prejudiced in this trial. And the judge goes, Mr. Calhoun, you're right. Let's see the video. And that video is the last thing that was seen, because that was the end of the trial. I'm the defendant. I get to admit my evidence in a certain order. And I knew that that evidence was going to be admitted. I knew that the prosecution would fight against it, but I also knew that I'd be able to push their button and they were going to say something that was going to get it admitted regardless. In which case it makes them look even worse because you were fighting against this and you gave your own characterization of it, which is completely false because what I just saw, and the best part was, so then when the prosecution had to do their final summation, they had to still summarize the erroneous opinion or characterization they had of the video, because if they did oppositely, they would be admitting that the video proved beyond a reasonable doubt, which meant to not prove beyond a reasonable doubt by their own summation, they had to openly lie about the video we just saw. Well, Mr. Cal has shown A, B, C, and D, which was the reason that they didn't want the video shown, but was exactly the antithesis of what the video did show. So I'm sitting there watching a prosecution lie to a judge's face about something that we just watched on video. And what I realized in that moment was the judge allowing it. I'm not sure that a judge can interfere in final summations. I don't know if that's a thing. But I would also imagine, and law aside, right, just talking about behavior, that the only reason a judge wouldn't interfere, and again, assuming that they can, right, like I don't know that, but the only reason a judge would interfere, or the only reason a judge wouldn't interfere would be in recognition of knowing what the outcome is going to be, because obviously the judge makes the outcome. It wasn't a trial by jury. The judge is the arbiter, and thus allowing the prosecutor to save face. I'm going to allow the prosecutor to make this argument. I'm not going to correct them. And Mr. Calashone seems quite smart. He's sitting there and he's not even opposing it, which means he even knows, let's allow this prosecutor to save a little face. Because the prosecutor was young. She had a chaperone with her, a supervisor, every time she did anything. In fact, every time that I made an objection or asked a question, the supervisor would tell the prosecutor, object for these reasons, and she would stand up and object, right? So you kind of knew what was going on. And again, you don't count your chickens before they hatch. Who knows? Maybe I get locked up and go to jail and they say, Anthony, you're like the biggest criminal ever. I have no idea, right? But I don't think that's going to be the case. So the benefit of having the truth and the benefit of never giving up is quite potent. And I think kind of like a lesson in life that I want to share with everyone is that don't allow the outcome to scare you. Don't allow timelines to scare you. Don't allow yourself ever to be intimidated by anything. If you know to yourself you have the truth and you make the commitment to yourself that you're willing to endure no matter what to get to the resolution, then take it day by day, because at some point, what you have compounded by doing a little bit here, here, is so gargantuan that your opposition is no longer able to discredit you. And for them to now even compete against you, they have to outwork you based on a lie while you're still building the truth by outworking and committed to outworking. Therefore, quite literally, if you have the truth and you have the commitment to yourself, you will either die or win. And I guess even if you lose, because honestly, if I lost, I have no regrets. There is nothing about anything that I did where I look back and say, oh man, I should have done this differently. I allowed that to be my North Star the entire process, and I'm going to allow it to continue. So in summation, let me get going because I don't want to allow this to become a soapbox too much. But in summation, oh my God, my summation was so great in court too. They're like, oh, can you keep it short? I was like, Your Honor, actually, I'm just gonna kind of speak from my heart real quick. I don't really have much to share, which is such an unspoken way of saying, I don't think I'm going to lose. Like, I don't think it's even possible. So, hi, thank you for giving me a fair trial. And I appreciate the prosecutor's office for allowing me this privilege. I love America that I'm afforded this privilege. And, you know, I'm not guilty. I love my children. I love this. I love that. And I know the charges against me, and I knew what they could have been when, you know, and when acting. And I've always knowingly never acted in that way. So, that's it. But anyway, so in summation, and I'm pretty sure it sounded pretty much like that. But in summation of this, by Wednesday, we would have made our first contact. By April, we would have received enough interest that somebody is willing to accept our deal and close. And the reason why the amount is so low is because we want the commitment to close like within 7 days. I'm not allowing this to go on for weeks and months. Could I get 50 million if I was committed to like, hey, this could last a year? Sure. Not interested. I want it and I want it done. And just last story, I guess. So on Saturdays, I take my kids to this place, Bellworks. And it's this amazing super center. It used to be by Bell Labs, which is a great technology company that was in New Jersey. And they've since donated the campus. And now it's just like a family-oriented place. They have, what's it called? Anyway, so fields inside, but with the, what's it called? The turf. Okay, fake turfs. And kids are just playing everywhere, and they have balloons and they have everything, and there's just kids running around everywhere. There's a track that people walk, there's stores. It's just really, really quite amazing. And it's free. You just bring your family, and you allow as long as your kids were raised well, like they know right from wrong and they don't beat up other kids, it's a very welcomed place. And as we're driving there, we have to go through Colts Neck because this place is located in Homedale. Now, Colts Neck is a very, very affluent area. All the houses are gigantic. We call them McMansions. They're really, really quite big. And the last 2 times I've brought my children there, my son looks out the window and says, "Daddy, that house is so big." And of course, it's like, I'm never going to be so dishonest that I'm not going to ask the presumptive follow-up question because I am intimidated by the answer, right? So of course I ask, do you like the house? Yes. Do you want a house that big? Yes. And there's something different than when, everything that you're doing is for your kids and you live in an apartment, which is great, there's nothing wrong with it. I love my place. But where your son tells you he wants to live in a big house with a backyard, where, again, if you're doing everything for your children, what's your pass fail? Did you succeed when you knew that they wanted something, but you didn't work hard enough to get it? That you just told them, hey, Daddy worked really hard and have fun in this apartment. And it just kind of changed things. So, that's not the reason the deal is the way the deal is, but that might have also been a factor in coming up with a deal that checks all the boxes. And I want it closed. I want a large house. And you guys that know me, I drink out of the same water bottle. I started this call by saying I probably have plastic poisoning. But the house, when your kids want to run around in a yard, I think that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I have matrimonial trial in April. My birthday's in June. It just seems like a really cool timeline that if I can have this completed by April, win trial, and somehow get a house for my birthday with my children, that's kind of the goal. And that goal is to a higher power, it's to my kids. I love you, right? But I said higher power. That supersedes me. Like, we're in this together, but we all, when people say, oh, you own a business, you're so lucky, you're this, you're that. I'm like, I'm not the boss. Everyone else is the boss. Everyone tells me what to do. I have to answer to everyone. And we all answer to the mission. And the mission is my children. And my children are 3, right? I have 2 biological and Rhino, which is Ted. And if my son Christian's happy, if Ted's happy because he's the oldest, and Christian's happy and Amaris is happy, well, then by definition, you're happy and I'm happy. So that's who I answer to. And you don't answer to me, I answer to you, right? So that's everything. How did we start this call? I think I said I need 10, 15 minutes, and then I was maybe a half hour. It's been 56 minutes. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. So I love you all. I don't think this call needs much editing. I think the beginning, probably a little bit, because I think I started kind of slow, but I hope to have this out um, by the afternoon, probably the next hour or two. So I'll get on this now. I'll download the video, I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'll send out an email with the link. And that's that. So as always, I love you all. You have my email, you have my phone number. If anyone needs me, please contact me. As you know, I've just outlined the timeline. So any questions that one might have that is analytical, antithesis, can you say antithesis in that version? And it's, let me just try to not be fancy. If you have any questions that's opposite of the timeline, just know that the answer might be uncomfortable because I'm clearly outlining how the answer is going to be answered. But I still will take the call or the email, and I'll do my best to white glove it for you. But the answers are not going to be different than how I just outlined it. So I love you all, and I appreciate y'all. And let me get to work, right? Let me get to work so I can make sure that we're all very happy.